Gears 3 did end pretty conclusively. The emulsion countermeasure weapon knocked out the Locust and the Lambent, and they were done.
Yeah, that was the big question, right? Is how do we continue the Gears of War 3 story?
And I think for us it was, okay, moving forward, how do we set up a foundation for not just a trilogy, but for a much larger universe?
We talked about things like alternate planets and things like that, and we wanted to stay on Serra because we wanted to have the opportunity to revisit old places and use specific weapons and have these touchstones to the past. That's when we decided, okay, let's go all the way forward. Let's put enough time in that we can have a new generation of heroes and create J.D. Phoenix, Marcus's son.
I wouldn't say it's a reboot, I would say it's an update, and I think part of that is to take advantage of the new platform. I think part of it is to, to sand off some of the rough edges that were there. That is wonderful, but at the same time you kind of look at it and go, maybe we would do that a little bit differently.
So I think a lot of people are going to expect that when they fire up Gears of War 4, they're going to be a gear within the COG army and so forth, but that's not what this is. It starts off with J.D. Phoenix and his friends Del and Kate, and they're outsiders. J.D. and Del were part of the COG, but they went AWOL and became an outsider. An outsider is this sort of splinter faction that people who didn't want to live under the oppression of the new COG. For this time around, because they're starting as outsiders, I think you see the COGs as adversaries. I wouldn't say enemies, that's a little strong. And so you start as an outsider and you're doing what outsiders do, you're conducting raids and doing that sort of stuff. And then this one night, these monsters attack and they take the whole village, including Kate's mom. And so the story is that over the course of this one night, basically the game starts in the afternoon of one day and finishes in the morning of the next day. And you just have to survive the night. And during that, you have to try to find Kate's mom and figure out what the hell's going on with these monsters.
Gears 1 was really the best example of what we wanted to go for in terms of tone, right? It was really more about tension and a little bit more survival horror.
By taking the story back to being a very personal story about these three people in the woods at one night, we're able to get back to that moment where you can feel scared and you can be having the discovery of what's out there and I don't know what's going bump in the woods. The things that they reveal and discover during this night can still be big, but the discovery process still makes it small and intimate.
It's really about a son of a war hero finding his way in the world. I think he's constantly fighting to not be what his dad was, but as we talk about, oftentimes the more you run away from your fate, the faster you actually run towards it.
With Gears 1, we had very little time. We had to kind of default to a shorthand, so the characters really became archetypes. You had to really understand and get them right away. And so now, I think 10 years later, when you look at what people are looking for in movies and stories and TV series, I think people are looking for a much more nuanced story. Over-enthusiastic pro athlete, there isn't that version for J.D., Del, and Kate.
Because of where Gears of War, the original, started, it was 14 years into the war. These guys had seen a lot of action already. It was sort of a band of brothers type experience where they had been through a lot. So their relationships and the way they talked about each other, because they were facing death around every corner, was a lot different than what we're going to create inside of Gears 4. This is a discovery. These people have a relationship, but it's not based around combat. It's based around normal relationships and normal events that happen every day. So I think we'll see their relationships evolve over time, but initially it's probably a little different tone than what we've had in previous Gears.
I have no aspirations to be like, this is the greatest story ever told, right? Because it's part of the medium. I think when you're dealing with a game type where you're kind of the one interaction you have with the world is what you shoot, it makes it really hard to tell the heartfelt, meaningful story. I think probably Last of Us is probably the closest that I think is to accomplishing that. So I'm not sitting here saying hey, we're gonna try to be the be-all and end-all of storytelling. I'm not. For us, it's about creating compelling characters in a compelling world, doing cool shit that you're going to love to go back to again and again.
I am excited for the story overall. I think this is, it's easy to say, but I think it's the best campaign because of what we talked about in terms of laying a foundation for a much bigger story and a much bigger universe, and with new characters that we can, that we can go on adventures with and we can grow and that can sustain and carry different types of adventures, whether it's Gears 4 or whether it's something else we might want to do down the line. I mean, these are younger characters, they're in their mid-20s, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to grow. So I think some of the things that the fans will see and gets revealed and some of the twists and turns that are in there, I think are super exciting, and personally I can't wait. When viewers play the campaign and they make it to the end, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe all the opportunities and all the things these guys are going to be able to do going forward.
That sounds like a hell of a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah, I think it is.